It's everything you love about the arcade game. Cut down to size. Only on the Super NES. With a free game music CD. So who needs a new system?
That right there about sums up my first time ever booting up Killer Instinct as a kid way back when. There's something about this game and that intro that just sells you on the world immediately. I don't know what it is. Anyways, what blows my mind about this game is anytime I go to boot up the old SNES, I still get that same feeling from all those years ago. Is it nostalgia? No. Even with the perspective of an adult with a fully developed brain, I still see that Killer Instinct is a pretty solid game. Now, before we get into it, I'm talking about the original Killer Instinct. I know the modern game is a fantastic addition to the series, but that's a video for another day. For those of you who are not familiar with Killer Instinct, it was originally an arcade fighting game released in 1994 by Rareware. And yes, that's the same Rareware that made such iconic titles like Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, and the all-time great Kinect Sports. The arcade version of Killer Instinct was later ported to the Super Nintendo in 1995, which is the version we're going to be looking at for today. The game takes place in a dystopian future where a corrupt megacorporation, Ultratech, essentially owns the world, and they host a yearly tournament where the best fighters in the world, human or otherwise, compete for fame, prizes, and fortune. And to quote the manual itself, it will take a killer instinct to win. Now, if you've never played Killer Instinct, or even if you're a Killer Instinct veteran, that's really about all the context you need to understand what's happening in this game. The game doesn't really concern itself with investing you in the lore first. Plot comes secondary to the action and is mainly there for those who wish to uncover it. The main reason why you play this game is to watch that knight-looking ass beat-boot robot beat up that pirate skeleton-looking dude. But why is Killer Instinct so inclined toward grabbing your attention immediately? Like, think about the commercial I showed you at the beginning of the video. That was basically just the video game equivalent of, if you don't chew Big Red, then f*** you. Well, that's because in the early 90s, there's a Mortal Kombat-sized elephant in the room. Ah, Mortal Kombat. The original terror of any God-fearing Midwestern mother of the 1990s. I tell you, this game rocked the arcade and video game scene when it came out. It had everything that a young kid in the 90s was told is dangerous. Blood, sex, violence, and minorities. The point is, Mortal Kombat was the fighting game, and in order to compete with combat, you had to stand out. This is where Killer Instinct steps into the scene. According to the gameplay designer Chris Tilston, the original Killer Instinct arcade release was, quote, designed to go into the arcades and be as loud and be as brash and in your face for the arcade market as possible. The absolute dominance of Mortal Kombat in the 90s meant that Rare knew their game had to stand out, or else they would be doomed as that Mortal Kombat ripoff. And this dominance of Mortal Kombat is precisely why I think Killer Instinct is far less known in comparison to its fatality-fueled competition, and why many overlooked it as a solid entry into the fighting game genre. And no, I'm not saying Killer Instinct is some, hidden gem that no one's ever played. It was pretty popular, don't get me wrong. But I think if you were to ask some random Joe Schmo on the street, hey, name me a fighting game, they probably wouldn't say Killer Instinct. Know what I mean?
Hey bro, what are you playing?
Monster Combo! King Combo! Ultra Combo!
Holy fuck.
I want to start by looking at the gameplay and the sound design of Killer Instinct. I think it's one of the main reasons it's still a solid title to this day. Being a traditional 2D fighter from the 90s, a lot of the gameplay revolves around stringing together crazy combos using precise button inputs. This is all in service of absolutely wrecking your opponent. Killer Instinct took the ideas of combos from its contemporaries and ramped this up to 10. Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter had combos you could pull off, but Killer Instinct really incentivized gameplay around combos. If you need proof, just listen to the announcer absolutely lose his mind over how sick your combo was.
Combo Breaker!
The game also rewards defensive gameplay with combo breakers, which are kind of like this high risk but high reward move that, if successful, can completely break the opponent's flow and their combos. To not overcomplicate things, combos are really there to absolutely wreck your opponent as fast as possible. If skilled enough, you can pull off a combo that can finish an opponent in literal seconds. Or if you're absolutely godlike, you can pull off a work of art like this. And this is really where the gameplay shines in my eyes. Pulling off something crazy with a raptor to beat the living hell out of Mike Tyson is truly something special. Now, I could spend the rest of this video just talking about all the crazy combos and the metagame there is, but none of that really matters, because the only move you need in this game is the one where the skeleton just zips across the floor. Seriously, this move is so broken. But on top of the crazy combos you can do, there's also danger moves, which is the rated T for teens version of fatalities. These moves range from incredibly boring to absolutely nutty. Or how about Orchid, whose danger move is showing off her boobs? Only the kindest of gentle Sir Fedoras could literally die at the sight of boobs. Also, I just love how meaty the sound effects are. There are some small details that really shine in the sound design. For example, when Fulgore, a giant-ass beat boob robot, jumps, he hits the ground with this loud metallic clang. My guy is so heavy that the entire screen literally shakes when he lands. That's how big this boy is. Or when Spinal slashes his sword down, you get that perfect sound. It really is perfect. Landing a hit or blocking an attack not only feels rewarding, but it sounds rewarding too. Speaking of sounds, did I mention how absolutely hard the soundtrack goes? Like seriously, listen to the theme of Saberwolf and tell me this does not sound like Dracula raising an army of the dead or something. Or how about Fulgore's theme, which is still an absolute techno jam? But what was really a nice touch too about this game is that when it released on the SNES, it came with a full studio soundtrack on its own separate DVD. So Rare knew they had some banger tracks that you would always want to go back and give another listen. Okay, this is totally off script here, but I very vividly remember having this DVD in like this old ass Walkman way back when I was in middle school. This CD was like one of the main things I would listen to. So if you couldn't tell, I was definitely a Chad in middle school.
Fight on.
Killer Instinct has a cast of 9 playable characters with 1 super secret unlockable character. You got Cinder, Glacius, Saberwolf, Combo, Orchid, Spinal, Jago, Thunder, Fulgore, and the secret character, Idol. Now, I'm going to be honest with y'all for just a quick second. The character design of this game is not that great. I mean, let's be real. Most of the fighter roster you can find at a Spirit Halloween. Like, take a look at Saberwolf. My man is literally just a werewolf. Jago is a ninja. Combo's Apollo Creed. And Spinal is literally just a skeleton with a sword and shield. There are a few exceptions to this lack of originality to the character design, like Glacius, who's this sick-ass little ice alien dude, Idol, and my boy Fulgore. Like, he's got this medieval knight aesthetic blended with the futuristic technology of a Terminator. It's just so cool. I really feel like a lot of the creative output into the character design mostly went into Fulgore. But again, Fulgore is in the minority of the original character design. But it is not the characters on their own that make this roster unique. Because remember, Wolf, Ninja, Human Torch, Spirit Halloween. What makes the fighters in this game memorable is the combination of them in the same game. Remember how a few minutes ago when I said, pulling off something crazy with a raptor to beat the living hell out of Mike Tyson is truly something special. Yeah, that right there is why this game stands out. In most of the fighting games of Killer Instinct's time, the cast of characters, while unique in ability, did not diversify their cast to the extent that Killer Instinct did, until much later. Mortal Kombat, for example, had some sick fighters to use. You had Johnny Cage, Liu Kang, Sonya. All of these characters looked badass, but still looked relatively similar. Contrast this with Killer Instinct that has a night robot, a ninja, a boxer, a skeleton, an ice alien, a fireman, a two-headed cyclops, a werewolf, and a fucking raptor all in the same game, and you can start to see the appeal. It wasn't necessarily the characters themselves that made for a solid fighter selection. It was more so the beautiful blend of having all of these characters in one single game. Let's take a quick second to talk about lore. The lore and world building of Killer Instinct is perfect in my opinion. It gives you enough for the average player to at least understand what the hell is going on. I mean, the game is pretty much just like, this is a tournament, kill your opponent, and win. And I mean, realistically, that's all you need. But if you're a massive nerd like myself and wonder, hey, why is this dude made of fire? The game gives you that information if you are inclined to dig deeper. So he's made of fire because of chemical experiments. Glacius, my man. What's going on with this guy? What's his story? His age is unknown. Oh, he's an alien who is forced to fight in the tournament. Why is he on Earth? How goddamn powerful is Ultratech that they can capture an alien made of ice? Or what about our old pal Robot Knight Fulgore? What's his story? Alright, this is totally off script, but when I was doing research for this video, I don't know why this is here, but apparently in the Killer Instinct wiki, according to the manual and the lore of Killer Instinct, Fulgore was made by a team of Asian scientists, exclusively Asian scientists. I don't know why they had to specify specifically Asian scientists, but I'm just imagining some like poor scientist that wants to help out on this project. They say, no, not Asian enough. See, these are the kind of questions that start to run through your brain a little bit when you dig deeper into the lore of Killer Instinct. But what I like about the lore of Killer Instinct is that there's some beauty in that minimalist approach. What Killer Instinct does a good job at is giving you what you need while always leaving lots to the imagination. For example, the important stuff that you need to know, like character endings or what happens when you beat the game, is there. Granted, you have to beat it on hard mode, you giant weenie, but it's there if you want it. But let's say you want to know what happens in between a fight between Thunder and Glacius, or who would canonically win in a fight between Glacius, a guy made of ice, and Cinder, a dude made of fire. Well, the game doesn't tell you that. You gotta try and think about that on your own. Or what organization does Orchid work for? It mentions in the manual she's trying to infiltrate this tournament on behalf of some agency. Are they the good guys? Who knows? A lot of that's up to you. Let's take a quick second and put on our only 90s gamers can understand this reference hat for this last section. I don't really know how else to label this part other than just 90s nostalgia. Something about Killer Instinct is just so full of that retro game, rose-colored glasses charm. I think one of my favorite examples of this is how the hardware limitations of the SNES forced Rare to innovate. Like how in the end cutscenes, a lot of the "yes, I did it" emotion the characters are supposed to be portraying are literally copy and pasted animations from the game to save on space. My favorite is Final's ending, where he's supposed to be laying down relaxing, but it's literally the same animation of him completely eating it. Killer Instinct also has some classic old school staples that I desperately wish would return to today's games. Like cheat codes. If you hold down left, right, A, B on the character select screen, you can unlock slow-mo speed. Or alternatively, you can unlock a speed-up mode as well. The game encourages you to mess around with button inputs to try and find those hidden secrets. I mean, the manual straight up tells it that you can play as the final boss idol. That sentence right there was enough to drive any kid who played this game absolutely insane. What do? Maybe I have to beat the game on the hardest difficulty without dying. Or maybe we have to play the training mode for 1 hour without moving. Or maybe we have to beat Idol as Orchid wearing the pink costume and use the booby danger move, and he'll be so happy and horny that we can play as him. Or maybe... Ooh, or what about that early 90s CGI character model? I just love it. I don't know why this art style looks so cool to me, but it's got that kind of uncanny valley effect where you can blatantly tell that it's not a real image, but it's so far beyond what the SNES could render that it still gives you a good sense of what these characters would look like in the real world. My favorite is Fulgore using his beat-boopin'-ass laser eyes to slice Glacius into Dippin' Dots. Now you see that and you think, damn, I did that in the game. I could go on, but Killer Instinct to me is just such a good time capsule of fighting games in the 90s, and how much game development has evolved since then.
Game over.
Is Killer Instinct a masterpiece of gaming? No. But default, you might be asking. You just spent the entire video sucking off this game. And while yes, it is true I did give this game a good once-over and tug, I can't say it's a masterpiece. I love this game to death, but if I had to be brutally honest, outside of the combo system in this game, it can feel very sluggish compared to modern standards. Also, some characters are just blatantly better than others. I mean, Fulgore, for example, is one of the best characters in the game, just because of his kit alone. He can totally wall up close and personal characters like Combo, and it makes for a pretty broken character altogether. And because this was a game that was released before the era of online patches, if a character's broken, then that's it. I think when you label a game a masterpiece, it has to stand the test of time. When we talk about fighting games, hell, even games in general, there's not a pre-Killer Instinct era and a post-Killer Instinct era, like Half-Life or Ocarina of Time. But that's alright. Not every game has to be a masterpiece or a landmark title to be enjoyed. Killer Instinct, for better or for worse, is a product of its time. Despite that, I think if you go back today and give Killer Instinct another shot, I promise you'll still find an incredibly solid title.